Hi guys, welcome back to my channel. My name is Muturayo. I'm a software engineer based in Lagos, Nigeria. If you're a new subscriber or if you're new to my video, thank you so much for viewing this video. And then if you're returning, thank you. Today I have Godspower here in the studio with me. He's a core blockchain engineer. And today we're going to be chatting about his career, how he started his career from a computer science student to now working as a Web3 blockchain engineer. So, welcome. Thank you so much for agreeing to do this with me,
Thank you for
Gospower.
having me.
Yes. So, my first question for you today would be that you tell us how, like, who is Gospower? Who is Gospower, basically? Just tell us.
Mm. So professionally, I'm a software engineer.
Okay.
But personally, I think two things that describe me is I love doing hard things, and
Hmm.
I believe in the potential of doing hard things. And secondly, I believe that achieving mastery in your lifetime is more or less you achieving your purpose in life. So I think if I was to describe myself using two sentences, that would be a good one.
Hmm. That's heavy. Okay, so do you want to tell us about your career in cryptography? I know that you started in Web2 working full time as a software engineer, and now you are working as a core blockchain engineer. Do you want to give us the details?
Yeah, interesting. So I started programming about in 2017. So that was around the same time
That's
I
like eight
finished.
years ago.
Yeah, around the same time I finished secondary school, and I started learning Python, and around the same time I got admission into the university. I didn't code for a while, and then I came back to it in 2020, and since then it's been like it's just been. I don't think I've stayed close to 3 days without my laptop since 2020. So I started out as a Python Django engineer working on Web 2 systems, traditional web applications. And then in 2021, late 2021, I moved to Web 3. And then since then, it's been a mix of, I started out as a tutor. So I think it's something very interesting to talk about. The way I came into Web 3 was as a sort of an expert. So in the sense that I started by sharing about what I know. And so it was as if I already knew what I was doing. Meanwhile, I was still trying to break in just
Learning.
like every other person. So that kind of gave me some kind of um, authority in the space very early on, and that led me to mentoring in communities. And then fast forward to 2023, I decided to go into core engineering, and I did a bit of work with Ethereum. I was an Ethereum protocol fellow, and I contributed to the consensus client. And then in 2024, I was like, okay, what's the best way to maximize my potential doing hard things? And I was privileged to be in a position where I could take a sabbatical. And so I took a sabbatical throughout 2024. And right now, I'm currently working on a research and development lab focused on lattice-based cryptography, which is a very early, interesting type of cryptography. And that's basically what I'm doing now.
This is really interesting. I have like a couple of questions based on like your feedback. What exactly sparked your interest in Web3? Like you're already working as a software engineer in Web2, so why did you? I mean, I've been working as I've done like Web3 like boot camps and then just join and see what's happening here and run back to Web2, right? So like, what's it about Web3 that made you just decide to like go into Web3? That's like my follow up question. I have another question. I don't know if I should ask or
Yeah,
maybe.
you can.
Okay, so the second question is why did you choose cryptography? You love cryptography so much that you had to like take like a break from work to like focus on cryptography. So why did you do that?
Yeah. So the first question, in hindsight, because obviously I can't really remember exactly why I got into Web3, but in hindsight, I think sometimes when I see people joining companies like Google, Amazon, and this big tech company, I'm like, what if you just go and try to get like a Web2 job at like big tech and stuff? But I asked myself, can I really work on the things I'm currently working on in Web2? I don't think so, because Web2 is very stable. There are
Yeah.
no like everything works. You know, you're mostly working on things that already works, and even the hard things in Web 2 are hard, but you don't really have to
They've
do
been
it.
figured out by some people like 10, 15 years ago.
Exactly, right? So I think from the outside, Web 3 is chaotic, and it seems like we don't know what we are doing. I think it's the best way for young people to maximize their potential, right? Because there is still a lot of things that are not yet figured out, and you can actually come in and try to figure it out and try to make an impact. It's easier to make an impact in Web 3 because everything is still new. And about cryptography, I think back to what I said at the beginning, I like doing hard things, right? And this is an idea I've built over the years, past 2 years, something I've been nurturing and basically doing hard things, right? Because I'm currently doing a master's in maths, which is still the same whole idea of doing hard things. It's more like if you give me two things and ask me which one would you choose, I definitely choose the harder one because I believe it has better long-term value
Hmm.
for me, especially as a young person, as a young African, as a young Nigerian. Because I think one thing I notice a lot in the ecosystem, generally Web 2, Web 3, is that, and respectfully, most of us play like we're on the shallow end of the whole world space, right? In Nigeria, you might be like, oh, you're an engineer in Web 2, Web 3, but like if you really want to compete on a global scale and compete on a very fair ground,
Mm-hmm.
there's a level of skill you need to have, not just to be able to get a job globally. There's a difference, right? And I don't mean getting a remote job. I mean being a top in the
A top
world.
talent.
Yeah. So I think that's the game I'm playing. I'm playing to be able to see, okay, how do I maximize my potential to the fullest? And based on some privileges I have, I'm able to do this thing I'm doing, which is just taking a break. And later we can talk about how someone that wants to go on this journey, what I would advise. But I think my personal journey, just how do I maximize my potential and how do I stretch myself to the limit and see how far I can go in this space.
Yeah, so it's very deep, right? And I'm being honest, right? It's not everybody that will try to like do very hard things. People just want to live a soft life. Like they just, I mean, me personally, oh, I just want to, like, I want to work and do quality work, right? But I mean, you being passionate about solving hard problem is a stretch, and it's something I really admire about you. Yeah. To my next question, what would you say is like the experience switching? Because there are so many people trying to learn Web3. There are so many boot camps about Web3 on Twitter, on LinkedIn. There are so many people saying, "Oh, I want to be a blockchain engineer." I know there's a popular one that is in Ikorodu. I can't remember their name now.
Web3
Web3
bridge.
Bridge, right?
Yeah.
I know that Web3 Bridge does like a lot of like boot camps and then bringing talent in from like Nigeria to from everywhere in Nigeria and then camping them and training them. But that's most of the people that I've seen that have really learned Web3. But other people are just like winging it, right? So how will you say is like the switch for you, the experience? I know you said that you moved in as an authority because you were ahead in something, so people already saw you like, oh, this guy is already good in Web3. So how is the experience like for you? How difficult was it switching? I know you like hard things, but tell us,
Yeah.
how difficult was it?
Yeah. So first off, shout out to Web3 Bridge. Web3 Bridge is a very great program for anyone that wants to get into Web3. I think it has a lot to do with personality, right?
Mm-hmm.
I'm a very I've been a lone wolf for a very long time, right?
Okay.
I'm the kind of person that can just start things on my own and just do them, right? But people are different, right? So for someone like myself, I just picked it up, YouTube channels, Solidity tutorials, and somehow, so there's this thing whereby when I'm trying to learn, I don't like to learn in isolation. So
Mm-hmm.
when I'm learning, I want to show you that I'm learning this thing in order to teach you. So if I'm learning Solidity, I think one of the ways I did that was I started this thing called 30 Days of Solidity. I didn't actually finish it, but basically I would write a smart contract, explain the smart contract. I was a beginner, but I was just sharing what I knew about it,
Yeah.
right? And then even before then, when I was learning about blockchain generally, I was doing like this thread, Right? And I think that's what really gave me a lot of traction at the time.
Online.
This was 2021. I was just writing threads, and I think I wrote about something before I like stopped writing. But I wrote like on different things, on tokens, on DeFi, on what is blockchain. It was just, and I was getting a lot of
Feedback from
yeah,
people
yes,
seeing that,
attention
oh,
at the
this guy.
time. Yes. So, and then when I was still doing programming, but I was still learning, right? And then when I started actively sharing, I still did the same thing. 30 days of solidity, I was sharing, and then I started mentoring our Web3 ladies at the same time. And yeah, so it was not hard per se, but I can understand that it's not everybody that learn like that. So if you're someone that want to learn based on a structure, based on what you need people around you. And I think Web3 Bridge is a very good
Yeah,
one.
Web3 bridge.
And like the other ones, hard for me to remember
And
now,
there's
but I think
Web3 ladies, who I think is an online
exactly Web3
community.
ladies.
And
Yes.
then there's another one too. I can't remember, but if I
Yeah,
remember,
they're
I'll
kind of
put
a
the link.
lot. Yeah.
I'll put the link in the
Yeah.
description.
Sure.
The next question I have for you now is on transferable skills. What skills did you have in software engineering, Web 2, that helped you in your career as a core blockchain engineer?
Mm. So I think generally it's just the fundamentals of programming.
Okay.
You know syntax, you learn functions, variables, those things are transferable, right? So imagine you already know JavaScript or you already know Python. Learning Solidity, which is a smart contract, a language for building smart contracts, will be very easy, right? At least the basics, right? So, but then when you start getting a bit more advanced, you start seeing things that's specific to the blockchain, like gas optimizations. How do you read from state and write to state? Those things are a bit more different, but they are not very hard per se for someone that already knows programming, right? So most people that start learning Solidity after learning things like JavaScript, you hardly hear them complain that Solidity itself is hard. But when you start looking at more complex contracts, you start seeing things like um, you start seeing things that tricks like bit masking, those things that are a bit specific to the blockchain. You're doing those things because of the constraints that the blockchain is giving you. It's like, oh, you can't do this thing. Oh, you have to be mindful of how much gas you're spending. So you start doing those things. But those things are meta, they are details. The fundamental is like fundamentals of programming.
Yeah, I get. So when users or like end users, not engineers now, when they hear blockchain, they don't think of core engineering or core blockchain building, like building smart contracts, like the I don't want to give statistics like for people that don't work in software engineering or Web3. When they think about blockchain, they think about meme coins. They think about some people even know USDT to be like a form of transferring money, but they don't see crypto the way we see. They think of meme coins, tap coins. There's tap swap and those games. What's your opinion on this?
I think that's an interesting conversation because something I think about a lot. So first off, Web3, it's not just about tokens. That's first. It's not just about tokens. The tokens are there, crypto and all those things. But basically, it's an ideology. It's a way of thinking about building systems and not just technical systems, systems of the world, right? How do you take things from centralized party, centralized system and have it decentralized, right? In Web 2, we know this structure, okay, centralized servers, and then you have clients consuming from the server, and then anything that happens to the server, it affects everybody. Now, this is the technical part. But if you now take that to the world, you're talking about decentralizing authority, decentralizing voices, right? Not just having one person, right? So it's a way of thinking, and this has led to building many kind of applications that follow this idea, right? The blockchain is one of it, and things that are built on the blockchain, they are like examples of systems like this. So it's not just about the tokens, and then whoever you are, even if you're a marketer, you're a digital marketer, you're a videographer, you're a content creator, there's a space, and not just a space. There's a role you can play in the blockchain or Web3 generally. You just have to find out how, right? And I think it's a very interesting conversation because down here in Africa, down here in Nigeria, there's this idea that if you want to make money, you can, okay, there's this new thing on blockchain, people are making money there. Making money is good, and I understand, because we would not forget the fact that we're a developing nation, and people are like, it's
They
not
need
very,
money,
they need money and stuff. So that's why people are always
looking
going
for
there. But
avenues.
as a young person, what I would advise you is that, how do you create long-term value for yourself from this technology? You know, don't just, because it's like gambling sometimes, right? Things like tapping,
Yeah,
right? You're not gambling your money. Sometimes you're gambling your money, but you're gambling your time. You see young people spending hours tapping, right? You're gambling your time. That's your potential. That's your time you could be using to think about things that you could be doing to create sustainable value for yourself, right? And the creators of those things know that it sells in Africa, so we have a lot of it here, like different ones till today. Because sometimes I think about, okay, maybe the time has gone, but I still see people posting those things on their Telegram, so it's still very much,
even on Twitter.
yes, it's still much, very much active. People are tapping and wasting their time, right? And maybe if you tap for 3 months, they give you $20 and you're happy. Meanwhile,
They've made like times 100 or times 1,000
exactly right. So it's more like they're gambling your time, and they know that it's people like this that they can actually, people that are
target.
vulnerable to this kind of systems, right? You waste these people's time, and mostly people that are like, okay, it's not taking my time, but it's actually taking your time. Because think about it: if you want to compete on the global scale, the people you're competing against, are they spending their time doing that? No, they're spending their time building things that have more value. So that in 10 years' time, there'll be part of you that have built the blockchain and built things that were sustainable on the blockchain. Meanwhile, you'll be like, oh, there was a time I was tapping, but I don't know that with those people. I don't know. I don't really, you at the end, you don't really get the real value of the Web3. You got something and you got money. Sometimes it might be big, sometimes it might not, but at least you say, I got something out of it. But then is that really what the blockchain offers? Right. And for someone that works in the blockchain, sometimes it pains me because I'm like, this is not really what we are doing here. We are doing more. Right. And when you just take that small part and like go, I'm like, okay, but like it's not on us to educate
To clean,
more,
yeah,
yeah,
clean the
about
mess.
how these things actually work, right? And yes, it has not gotten mainstream
Mainstream yet.
adoption. That's why, okay, we are struggling to teach people this thing. But at the same time, it's sad that it's us back here in Africa, in Nigeria, are mostly the ones at the
And
receiving end
yeah,
from like these quick schemes and this. People are building like real stuff, right?
yeah.
People are creating company, people are like creating
Building real
value.
things.
Content creators, digital marketers, they're building their life around this thing. Meanwhile, we don't see that way. Most of us don't see that way, right? So yeah, I think most people should see the blockchain and Web3 as just like the web, right? You don't look
Hmm.
at right now the web is stable. That's why you don't see the web as somewhere to make quick money,
Yes,
right?
because it's stable.
It's stable. People understand what it's doing, but right now the part of Web3 that shows the most is the part where it feels like we are a casino. We are printing money here, right? So I think that's something that a lot of us need to think about. Always ask yourself, how can I produce value,
Long term.
long-term value that will benefit me in the coming years, right? Most things that are short-term are not really worth it, no matter how lucrative or no matter how beautiful they might seem in the moment. Most things are like it just makes sense. Like, if you want to have anything of value, you should take time. It's reasonable, right? Because
Like
there's like
once
a
it's too short,
exactly, once
it's
it's
not
too
working.
short, you just know that there's something. If it's too good to be true, then it's probably too good to be true, right? So I think that's a mentality that we need to imbibe, especially in the young people, because there's this, like, if you're thinking about it, how would Web3 be in the coming years, right? What would the African talent space be like? If a lot of us are doing mediocre stuff, shallow stuff, right? Or just tapping, oh, how do I suck out of these systems? And I talk about tapping, but this can also happen at a bit higher level. You might
Hmm.
see engineers, right? And they're building smart contracts, but they are building smart contract and they know how to build smart contract. But if you think about it globally, you're not really a competition for people
Yeah.
competing on the global scale. So
Like,
how
can
do
you
you,
compete
you
globally?
know? So I think it's something we should also think about, because with the rise of AI, in fact, naturally, where the world works, things increasingly get easier, right?
Yeah.
So how do you make sure that all sorts of people are not just doing the easier things? Because somehow this is not even about AI taking your job. It's just about how what you're doing becomes less attractive. So how do you put yourself up there? I think it's something we should think about a lot.
So to my next question, I would like you to educate our audience on what the potential of like the blockchain, what they can do. People don't know. I feel like the Web3 space is not, the UX at the moment is not very friendly. So a lot of people, when they just see code, they just see all these things and then they just run away. Do you want to educate our audience on the potentials, the things that they can come to? You don't have to work as a core blockchain engineer, right? The potential of the blockchain industry.
Yeah, interesting. So no matter what you're doing right now, right, especially if you're working on the internet, like you're a, like I said, a marketer, a content creator, a photographer. I've seen photographers put sell their photographs as
NFTs,
NFTs and
yes.
things like that. So you just have to ask yourself, how do I apply what I currently know to the blockchain? Right? There are some people that are not even doing anything web related, but they just be like, okay, I want to build a company, and how do I take this company on the blockchain, right? Or how does the blockchain help me build this thing better? And some of them
Yeah.
actually build companies, and so basically you have to ask yourself, what am I already doing that I'm good at, or what am I already doing, right? And how do I bring it into the blockchain? We've seen a lot of people like that, and it's actually a very good way to think about it, because some people, when they think about Web3, they're like, oh, I need to learn things from scratch. No, you already know something. How do
Mm-hmm.
you bring it into the blockchain? If you think about it, most of the people we know and respect, and like people that are like, they had a life before
Before
Web3,
Web3,
but
yes.
they've come in and
Mm.
somehow convinced you that they have been doing this thing for a long time, not by telling you, but just because of
By
how,
their works that you can see online.
so, but then it's not magic. It's more like, how do I come in here and bring the same energy, put in my best, bring in my existing skills, and try to create real value here. So that's how I think about it.
Yes. So you don't necessarily have to be like an engineer to work in Web3 space. Whatever skill you have from your Web2 ideas, whatever skills you have, you can bring it in this industry and then allow the blockchain like work for you, right? So to my next question, how are you able to like thrive in a an industry that's constantly changing? Like when I started learning about crypto in before COVID, let's say 2019, 2020, it was just BTC and Ethereum. And then now we have layer one, layer two. Do we have layer three?
Yeah, there's something like
So
that.
now there are so many chains. Like how do you thrive as an engineer in a space that do you have to do everything, or like do you have to specialize in maybe the chain you're on, or it's changing frequently. Even me as an engineer, I can't keep up. I can't keep up, right? So imagine like end users that don't even know anything about like the industry. So how do you keep up in this industry that's constantly changing? How do you thrive? I think the question is how do you thrive? Yes.
Mm. So I think something that has worked for me is I focus on things that don't really change that much.
Mm, okay.
So I focus on things like cryptography. Cryptography is hard, whether you come into the blockchain or not. Math is hard, whether it comes to the blockchain or not, right? So that's how I think about it. And then if you think about it deeply, the change is on a very, it's fundamentally, things are not changing much. They are still building blockchains, right?
Mm,
And a new chain might come out tomorrow with doing something new and
mm-hmm.
doing something new. But like at the end, it's still,
The same
the
fundamentals.
blockchain. So I'm not a fan of trends that much, and I try not to like close my eyes and like not look at what's happening. But I feel like those things can be distracting, because at the end, people that focus on the things that don't change are people that are going to win at the end, right?
I agree.
And understanding chaos, right? Because it's very chaotic, right? Things are coming out, like new chains are coming out. In fact, like
Like
there are many
I
chains you've
cannot
never heard
keep up.
about.
I
Like there's
cannot keep
many
up.
things I don't know about, right? I just see, sometimes when I see a list of all blockchains, I know probably like the first like 5 or 10. I'm like, the only one I've never heard
I
it
think
in
we
my
have
life.
we have stagnants now too, because stagnant is a chain too now.
Yeah, no, Starknet is even part of the popular ones. There are
Oh,
ones
okay.
that
Never
you've
heard
never
about.
heard of. All right. And they have users actually. People have their value proposition, and people are buying into it, especially the ones that are kind of very good at stimulating people's speculation and stuff.
We'll give you $20 if
You
you
know
bring
those kind
20
of things.
friends.
Human beings, that's the language of people, make money and all. But like, focus on the things that don't change that much because that's how life works. If you think about it, at the fundamental, there are some things that are very core that you are not scared about it changing, right? If you're a businessman in Web 2, the probability of coming into Web3 and doing great things is very, very high. Think about the investors, think about the engineers. They have been doing great things in Web2 and they came in and they're still
Yes,
doing
yes, they're still
they
doing
don't need
better
to,
things.
it's still the same thing, right? So focus on the things that don't change, right? And know how to clear out the distraction because a lot of things are distracting, right?
Mm-hmm.
A lot of things are like noise, right? That's why there's this thing we say whereby people that build in the bear market because the bull market when everything is going up, people are like hype. Even
Yeah.
you start seeing um
Everybody wants to make
experts,
money.
right? They
Yes,
just come
people
out
are
and they start
start
teaching you
saying
how to
things
times your money and like they're experts. But when the bear market comes, everybody is now like, oh, where are you
quiet.
all? Like, where did you all go? The people that build when the market is not very hyped up are people that actually building long term.
Yeah.
If you only show up when things are like going well and like, it does. So basically, think about focusing on things that don't change and knowing how to know distraction and remove it from your way.
Nice. Thank you. Me too. I've learned to. I mean, now even the Web2 industry, like a lot of companies don't have money. Like people are leaving jobs and all of those things. So if you keep building now, like things will get better. So to my next question, it's quite personal, so I'm not sure if you want to answer, but just let me know. So I know that you quitted your job to like focus on photography. Like where did the is it audacity or like the strength to like leave your job and like focus on learning something, not even that you're going to school, if you're like it was before you started the masters, right?
Yeah.
Like so like you left your job and just decided that okay, oh, I want to focus on cryptography for the next 1 year. How why did you choose cryptography? Where did the strength, because you cannot just leave your job, how will you, even if you have savings, right? If you're dipping into your savings is going down, right? So
Yeah.
where did the strength, the audacity, and then why did you choose cryptography?
Mm. So I think first off, my conviction is greater than my fear
Mm,
in the sense that I'm scared, but it feels like if I don't do it, like it feels like I don't if I don't do what I want to do, then the fear of not doing what I know I really want to do is higher than my fear of going broke, right?
yeah.
So I think that's something that's very fundamental, and it's not like I'm not scared. I'm still scared, right? I did like 2024 without any salary, um, sabbatical, just learning, and now I'm starting what's probably going to be another 1 year of
Of your life.
just building something that I'm passionate about, but at the same time, there's still uncertainty, right? So I think the conviction is higher than the fear. But at the same time, we also need to be realistic. I had some money saved up and I did the maths I could do as I did the calculation I could do as realistic as I can. But like it doesn't really go that way most times. And it's not going that way. But it's still something I'm going to do 100 times more because I've not gotten to where I want to be, but I'm convicted that this is the right path for me, because when I do it, I feel like I'm the kind of person that if I don't want to do something,
Ginger.
I feel like if I don't quit right now, probably something I'm not just myself, right? So but then I I didn't really so the way it happened was that I was finishing a contract and immediately I decided that I was going to go straight into sabbatical and not so I decided I'm not going to take any other
Any
jobs.
job.
So yes, I've had to quit jobs for because even before now, even if I said I didn't have things back then, I've had to quit jobs just because of I was not
Happy.
finding it like okay, can I do this thing? Am I really enjoying it? Does it feel like meaningful work to me? So yeah, it's generally conviction, right? I think conviction is if you had one word, conviction is the word.
Okay. Thank you so much for having this session with me. To my final question for you, what advice would you give people that are looking to start a career in Web3, blockchain engineering? Like, what would you like to tell them?
Okay. First off is do it, right? Come into the space. We need more people. Even if you just find it fun, you should come in, right? But specifically for young Africans, young Nigerians generally, I think one thing you should always think about, and this is generally no matter what you're doing, even if it's Web 2, Web 3,
Even if you're a fashion designer.
anything, right? How do you stretch yourself to your fullest potential, first off? And how do you, especially as a young person, right? How do you do things that will help you get the best long-term value, right?
Mm.
Because if you're not thinking long-term, most times it's not very it's not very effective. Yes, there's some cases you don't need to think long term, you don't need to overthink and stuff. But like in terms of value creation, you should always think about long term value, right? So when you're coming into this space, that mindset of short term gains, which we already know, which is already prevalent,
Mm-hmm.
kind of think about it a lot. Think about it like, do you really want to play this game, right? There are some people that they are what they do in the blockchain, and which is fine, but I don't think it's very effective. What they just do is they don't really have any skill that they use on the
Okay.
blockchain, rather
Okay.
than just they know when to buy and know when to sell. You might call yourself a trader. If yeah, trading is actually a skill, so maybe that's also it. But basically, when you're coming into the blockchain, think about how do you create long-term value, that would you be able to use in years to come. And let's not just be like, oh, this technology, I saw it when it started. I made some money when I left. We are pioneers. If you know about blockchain right now, you're a pioneer. You saw it at its earliest stage. We are still very early, very, very early.
Very, very early. I
You know,
agree.
So it's more like you saw something when it was coming up, but you just extracted short-term gain and you left. Which, if that's your goal, you can do that. But I believe as a young African, you would have a lot of long-term value from blockchain and Web3 if you just think about it that way, right? Short-term gains, they are there from tapping to buying and selling tokens, which are great. If you're a trader, no wahala. But if you want to create value, you should think about it long term. And also, do hard things. I think that's something I always talk about because it's something I'm really passionate about. Because I know when you think about the world, think about people that actually move the needle, right? They
Elon
don't
Musk.
they don't solve problems that are easy, right? So if you think about it, like, why is it that people like these guys, Americans and Europeans and Asians, oh, they're sending their kids for like math competitions and like they're doing all these things, and it look like, oh, it's not. Why are they doing these things? But somehow, in some years' time, you
They know
see,
what they're
okay,
doing.
that guy that was doing maths is now like this guy building like this crazy thing, right?
Mass.
You know. So think about how do you do hard things, because have this mindset that if you're given two things, just choose the harder one because you're young. What would possibly go wrong, right?
Yeah,
You'd like, what could possibly go wrong?
I
Think
agree.
about the worst case scenario and don't exaggerate it, right? Because when people hear, oh, you quit your job, like it looks like it's a big deal. It's a big deal, but for someone that's young, if you think about it deeply, it's really, really a big deal.
Yeah.
Take for instance, someone somewhere is in school in one of these Nigerian university, you're getting a little stipend from your parents, and with that, you are able to eat 3 square meals, and that's all. Probably you're not able to buy your clothes, the clothes you want to buy and stuff. You're not living life. You're just
Mm-hmm.
eating. Is that really is that really a bad thing for someone that's still coming up, right? Can
Okay.
you just say, okay, I'm trying to just focus on this? I understand that at this stage of my life, this is what I can afford. But
Yes.
at this stage of my life, I'm going to try and build enough capacity and
Mm-hmm.
enough value that would help me tomorrow.
Yeah.
But then when you hear people like that, they're like, I'm broke. Are you really broke if you are a student? Are you expected to be rich as a student? Right? You're a student and you're trying to build up capacity. You're trying to build up,
Long term.
long term, right? So doing hard things is very, very important, especially for people that are coming up. And then when I say hard things, I'm not really necessarily talking about doing cryptography or math, right? Because I think when I say these things, it kind of looks like that. But in any field you are, there are things that make you stand out.
Yeah.
And most of the times they're harder than what other people are doing. Go for those things.
Mm-hmm.
What makes the best marketers? As a marketer, go and think about it, go and look for those things and try to do it. Right? It's not just about tech and core engineering. In fact, everybody should not do maths and cryptography. This is my journey. But like, no matter what you're doing, even if you're just doing smart contracts, right? Who are the best smart contract engineers in the space? What are they doing,
Mm-hmm.
right? And I always think about these things like on a global scale,
Yeah.
right? If you're the best in Nigeria, best in Africa, you are not the best in the world, right? You're not even the best in, I don't know, So
1%. Like think of being a
you
global
know
talent.
exactly right. Thank you, a global talent, right? And I also think about in terms of like personality. When we talk about it, it seems like we're just talking about career. But when you're operating at your highest potential, you feel more fulfilled as a human being, right? One of my goals in life generally is to not at the certain stage of my life to not feel like it's something I would have done in terms of stretching myself,
Mm-hmm. That you
right?
didn't do.
You know, there's this thing called resistance from the book The War of Art, right? Resistance is like, think about it. There are a lot of things you want to do, but there's like a force that's more like it's pushing you not to do it. Those things are probably things that will make you the most happiest in life. But somehow, if you're spiritual, if you're a Christian, or you might say, okay, this is like a force. Or if you're just not any of those things, you might say, but you just know that there's this force pushing you from doing that thing that you really want to do. And I think about just operating at your highest potential will definitely make you a happier person generally because you
Yeah.
feel like you're
More
using,
fulfilled.
you know, I think this is something to think about generally, not just about career. Yes, I need people, I want more people to come into Web3. I want to see more Africans doing great things. I want to see more Africans operating at a very high level in the Web3 space. I want to see more of us not just being users and not just being numbers, being
Yeah.
actual people creating
Producers,
value in the system,
creators.
So yeah, that's what I would say.
Yeah. Thank you very much, Godspower. If you are still here, thank you so much for watching this far. Please subscribe to my YouTube channel. I'm begging at this point. Please subscribe and like this video and share with your loved ones. If you know anyone that is trying to like get into Web3, blockchain, I'm sure they'll find this insightful because even me as a software engineer, I've been working for about 5 years now and I still have like a lot of things. I still have to watch this video again so that I can like digest all the things that you've told us. So thank you very much, Godspower. Thank you everyone. Bye
Thank
bye.
you.